Financial aid. This is probably one of the more important lectures that we're going to have, because if you can't afford to go to college, you can't get an education. Fortunately, there are ways to finance your education, and it really starts in high school, believe it or not, because the higher your grades and the higher your test scores, the more likelihood that you'll receive scholarships. So financing your education is very important. Ideally, I would love for you guys to graduate with no debt, meaning you don't owe anyone any money. However, that's probably not going to be the case for most individuals because college is so expensive. So we're going to talk about ways to finance your education. Numbers don't lie, guys. Unfortunately, the student loan debt in our country is over $1 trillion, meaning the students that came before you, the students that graduated already, they borrowed money from the government to finance their education. As a result, they have to pay back that money over time. When I was an undergrad and also for my doctorate program, I had to borrow money to finance my education. And now I'm paying it back. And that's not a good thing because, well, it is a good thing that you can pay your debts back. But the issue is every month it's a bill and you have to pay your bill until you completely pay back the student loans. So ideally, I don't want you guys to borrow loans at all. However, it is a reality of life. So with that being the case, you guys need to be mindful of your academic grades, and when you get to college, be mindful of other opportunities to finance your education. There is tons of free money out there, but one, you have to go get it, and two, you have to qualify for it. So there's nothing wrong with taking out a student loan because what you're doing is you're investing in yourself. However, that should be the last resort because I much prefer you guys to get the free money as opposed to a loan that you would have to pay back. So how does the process begin to receive financial aid? And the answer to that question is it starts with the FAFSA website. The FAFSA website is where you go to initiate the process. Every year, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, you're going to have to complete a FAFSA form. Now, it's not really the student that has to complete it, it's really the parent because we need the federal government needs your parents' information as it relates to their income because your financial aid package is determined on how much money your parents are bringing in annually. So every year you should complete a FAFSA form. Now the form should be completed at least before March because you want to get all your information in the system before the March deadline so you can be eligible and qualify for the money because the money is on a first come, first served basis, especially the grants. And we're going to talk about grants a little bit later. So parents, you would have to complete your taxes as soon as possible so that your child can receive their financial aid package in a timely manner. When you visit the FAFSA website, you're going to have to create an account as you would almost any other website now. But you're also going to have to create a PIN. And the PIN is going to be like your signature. You're going to have to apply for the PIN, and going through the process, you will receive a PIN. And that's the code that you're going to use. It's a 4-digit number. That's what you're going to use to sign on your FAFSA freshman all the way until your senior year. So the website, once you go there, it will prompt you on how to do so. Prior to completing your FAFSA form, there are a few things you guys may want to consider. Number one, what institution would you like to attend? And this is important because on your FAFSA form, you're going to have to tell the federal government where to send your financial aid information. So you got to have an idea. And it's okay to put multiple institutions on your FAFSA form. Because if you don't know, if you're a high school senior and you're not sure, you haven't made your decision, or if you haven't heard back from any institutions as of yet, then you can put multiple schools on your FAFSA form. You're going to have to decide if you want to take out loans. This is very important because, again, if you don't qualify for scholarships or grants, and we'll talk about those later, then your only other option is to work or to take out student loans. There's a program called Work Study. And on your FAFSA form, you'll be prompted to decide if you're willing to participate in the Work Study program. The Work Study program is based on eligibility. You're going to have to qualify for this money. And how it works is you work on campus, you have a fairly simple job with flexible hours because you're a student, and normally the jobs consist of answering phones or filing paperwork, and the federal government will pay you a certain amount of money for your work. Again, you have to qualify for Work Study. However, I strongly recommend that everyone selects work study, and if you get it, try to find a job on campus. It's fairly simple and it pays well. And finally, you have to know whether or not you'll be living on campus. Keep in mind, you may not have an option. It kind of depends on your institution. As a freshman, many institutions require their students to live on campus for a year, in some cases 2 years. However, on the FAFSA form, you have to decide and you have to tell the federal government your housing accommodations. But do your research and find out if your institution requires you to live on campus. Now, the process to complete your FAFSA form is really not that difficult. The most important thing is you got to have all the information necessary to complete the document. For instance, you're going to need your social security number. And if you're not a citizen, then your alien registration number. Next, you're going to need your parents' recent federal income tax returns. This is very important because this is how the financial aid office or the federal government determines how much financial aid you will be receiving. If your parents are well off, meaning they make a lot of money per year, then don't anticipate to receive a lot of financial aid. However, if your parents aren't making that much money annually, then your financial aid package will be a little bit higher. It's very important to tell the federal government how much money your parents are making outside of their income. If they're investing or if they have real estate property, other forms of income, the financial aid office or the federal government, they need to know this information so they can determine how much money they will be giving you guys. Now, as I stated before, you will need a PIN. And again, the PIN will serve as your signature. You have to apply for the PIN, and once you apply for the PIN and you complete the necessary information for your FAFSA form, you will be eligible to submit your FAFSA form to the federal government. Prior to submitting your FAFSA form to the federal government, you'll be prompted to input the institutions you would like the federal government to send your FAFSA information to. For example, if you're planning on going to Harvard, then you need to input on the FAFSA page that you want your information to be sent to Harvard. And then after 2 to 3 weeks, Harvard would then have your information on file and will be able to tell you how much money you'll be receiving if you attend their institution. Now, the deadline for your FAFSA form is June 30th. However, I strongly recommend that you turn in your form prior. I'm talking about maybe March or April. The sooner the better, because some of the money is on a first come, first served basis. And you don't want to wait to the end to submit your information. So, students, talk to your parents, encourage them to get started on the FAFSA form. Parents, try to complete your taxes as soon as possible so your child can receive as much money as they are eligible for. These two acronyms are very important, EFC and COA. EFC stands for Expected Family Contribution, and I kind of alluded to this prior. Your family, depending on how much money they're making annually, they may be expected to contribute towards your education. In the case listed here, from their earnings, the parents are expected to contribute $2,500. From their assets, $112, and the student is expected to contribute $500. Now, in some cases, after the federal government does your financial aid package, they may give you an EFC that your family can't afford. If that's your situation, then you may have to find other ways to pay your tuition and your college expenses. This may require you working. You may have to take out a private loan. You do have other options. Next, we have cost of attendance, or COA. Now, once you submit your FAFSA form, you will have a breakdown of how much money it will cost to attend the institution you put down. So again, if you selected Harvard, you will receive a COA on how much money it would cost to attend Harvard. So in the example listed here, it costs $17,000 to attend this institution. And this is for the year. It's not per semester, this is for the year. So $17,000. Now, there are ways to reduce the cost. However, it kind of depends on your personal situation. For example, if you choose to rent your books shouldn't cost $1,000 for the year. Also, tuition. If you're not living in the premier dorm on campus, it shouldn't cost $7,000 for your housing. Keep in mind, and we'll talk about this later in the housing segment, But housing can range. You can go for the nicer, the newer buildings, or you can go for the older buildings. And of course, if you choose the older establishments, then it won't cost as much. However, this is very important, EFC and COA, because EFC would tell you how much money your parents are expected to contribute towards your education, and the COA will tell you how much money it will cost to attend the institution. After you complete your FAFSA form, in about 4 to 5 weeks, you will receive your financial aid award letter. And this is very exciting because this tells you how much money you guys will be receiving for the next academic school year. Now, it will be broken down by type of financial aid. For example, you're going to have your grants, your scholarships, and your loans. In this case right here, this individual will be receiving $625 for the fall and spring semester for the federal Pell Grant. When it comes to loans, it's a little bit more. The government is willing to give them $1,500 for the fall and spring for a subsidized loan, and for an unsubsidized, it's $1,938. So for the whole academic school year, the student will be receiving $8,126. So is the $8,126 enough to cover the cost of attendance? And it really depends. If the cost of attendance is $15,000 for one whole year, and the student is only receiving $8,126, then the parents will be expected to contribute roughly $6,874 to cover the total cost of attendance. So that's how the math is done. So when your information comes in, you guys need to do the math to figure out if you will have enough money to cover the cost of attendance. If you guys decide to take out a student loan, you have to understand there are two types of loans. Number one, a subsidized loan. And this is the preferred type of loan because the interest does not build up until after you graduate or after your deferment period. Meaning, if you take out a loan freshman year, no interest will be added until you graduate or until you stop attending the institution. Example, if you borrow $1,000 freshman year, at the end of your 4 years, when you graduate, if you only borrowed $1,000, you will owe the federal government only $1,000. Now, with the unsubsidized loan, that's not the case. If you were to borrow $1,000 your freshman year, the interest will begin building up as soon as that money is dispersed by your institution. The interest rate kind of depends on the time. However, the difference between these two loans are when the interest begins. This is very important. So if you must take out a loan, I strongly recommend you take out the subsidized student loan as opposed to the unsubsidized. However, if you need the money, do not be afraid to take out the unsubsidized loan. You have to pay your tuition, you have to pay your books, you need money to go to school. However, understand that the money that you take out for the unsubsidized loan, the interest will begin to build up as soon as you take the money out. So take only what you need. Just because you have $2,000 or $3,000 in loans available doesn't mean you need to take it out, because you're going to have to pay this money back. And this is very important. You guys are young, 18, 19-year-old students. So a lot of times when you see that money available, your eyes get big and you think about all the things you can do. Spring break, shopping, buying a car, whatever. However, you have to keep in mind that this is not free money. This is money that belongs to the government, and eventually they're going to want their money back. For those that are willing to take out student loans, there are limits on how much money you can take out. The federal government doesn't want you guys to take out money heedlessly, so they kind of put a cap. As a freshman, if you're taking an unsubsidized loan, the max you can take out is $5,500. If you're taking out a subsidized loan, the max you can take out is $3,500. And this is for the whole academic year, not per semester. This is for the whole year. And the rest of the information is as follows. But again, as a word of caution, be mindful on how much money you choose to take out in student loans, because again, you have to pay back this money. I mentioned work study prior. This is an excellent opportunity to get a job on campus. And the jobs, again, they're not that grueling. A lot of times, you're working in the library, filing books, or answering phones. And it's a great way to network. The government will give you money per semester if you find a work-study job. But keep in mind, the better jobs tend to fill quick, just like anything in life. So you have to be proactive. On most campuses, how it works is the university will list the jobs that are available, and you have to contact the respective office to see if they're willing to hire you. They may do an interview process or some type of process to kind of determine if you'll be a good fit. But nonetheless, if you do qualify for work study, I strongly recommend you take full advantage of this opportunity. As it relates to financial aid, grant money is the best type of money available because you don't have to pay it back. And in some cases, you automatically qualify for it. For example, when I was an undergrad, I was a first generation student, meaning my parents did not go to college. So because I was first generation, automatically I received some grant money. Now, there are different ways to receive grants. Some grants are discretionary, meaning there is a competitive process. You have to go and apply or qualify for it. Others, your university or your college may have money from their foundation and they're willing to give it away to their students. But you may have to qualify, and they set up their own parameters for that. And then you have Congress, where they set up their formula grants. And that's how I got the first generation money, because that was something that they stipulated in the policy. Now, grants are excellent. You have to do your homework, you have to do your research to see what grants are available and which grants you qualify for. So, for example, if you're planning on majoring in education, there's a grant out there for future educators. Or if you served in the military prior, there's money out there for you. You have to do your homework, you have to do your research to figure out what type of money is available, but as it relates to grants, that's the type of financial aid that you want to receive. And finally, scholarships. Scholarships are everything because, again, it's free money, but you have to qualify for it. And a lot of times, it is academic based, meaning you got to have a nice GPA or a pretty good test score. But in other cases, not really. I've seen scholarships available for people that live in a certain city. Just because you live in a city, the city government is willing to give you a scholarship. Or if you're left-handed, you get a scholarship. If you're above 6 feet, you get a scholarship. With scholarships, it's a little bit different because you have institutions, organizations that are willing to give money away. But and a lot of times, it has to align with their purpose. So if you have an organization that wants to help students finance their education, but their underlying purpose is research, then you would have to do some type of research in order to qualify for it. So scholarships are plentiful. They're out there. And if you visit websites like fastweb.com or scholarships.com, then you can do your research and find out what's out there. The money is there, but you have to go and have to apply for it. In many cases, you may have to write an essay, and that's fine. A lot of times the questions are similar, so you can reuse the same essays that you used prior. But in some cases, you may have to write a totally new essay. But sacrificing an hour or an hour and a half to write an essay where you can receive $500 per semester, I think is worth it. You have to do the research and you have to figure out what's out there. I would strongly recommend that you visit the websites I stated prior, but also, once you get to your institution, I will recommend that you talk to your financial aid office. They may know or have a website of scholarships available. In some cases, if you go to the more prestigious universities, you have people that are giving money to these universities, and in return, they want students to receive the money. So do your homework, do your due diligence, and find out what type of scholarships are out there and if you qualify or not.